Thank you for joining us today for our survivorship special topic. My name is Julie Lanford, and I am the Community Engagement Director at Cancer Services Incorporated. We are a cancer support nonprofit located in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We have a library of special topics that are recorded and available for you to view around cancer survivorship and cancer caregiving. These interviews are posted on our website and our YouTube channel, and you can check those out at cancerservicesonline.org/special topic or at the Cancer Services YouTube channel. And the audio for these is also available on the Triad Cancer Connection podcast. So be sure you subscribe to those. Today's special topic is how to thrive after you survive. And our expert speaker is Dara Kurtz. Dara is a breast cancer survivor, author, and survivorship mentor. Welcome, Dara. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Hi, I'm thrilled to get to spend some time with you.
And I'm also excited to share that Dara is, as of March this year, she is on staff with Cancer Services as our survivorship engagement support. So we're very excited to have her as our special topic speaker and to assist us in ongoing survivorship engagement and lots of other things. So as we get started, Dara, can you tell us a little bit about your cancer experience?
Yeah, so it's been 11 years since I heard the words, "You have cancer." At the time, I was 42, my kids were 11 and 14, and it came out of nowhere, like I think these things usually do. One minute I was driving carpool and going to my job and, trying to balance work life and all the things, and then the next I was hearing words like mass, surgery, chemo, and in that moment, I mean, everything in my life really did change, and while I found it relatively early, I wanted to be as aggressive as possible. So I did all the things. I had a double mastectomy with reconstruction. I did chemo, radiation, and even though I did genetic testing and nothing came back, I went ahead and had a full hysterectomy. So it really was like a 1 year journey, even a little bit longer. And you get to the end of that, and the doctors say, "Okay, it's time to go back to living your life." And for me, that's when I was just kind of like, I don't know how to live my life. I don't even know who I am anymore.
Right. And it's a whole, experience for the whole family, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It is. It's an experience for the whole family. And I would look at my daughters and I could just see the fear in their eyes. And I felt so guilty about making them, I put that in quotes because obviously it wasn't my fault this happened. It just happened. But I had so much guilt about that I really had to process and learn to sort of release.
Yeah, so that kind of feeds into another question about just the mental or emotional coping with this experience. Did you like what was the most significant shift that you experienced after you finished treatment in terms of mental or emotional? And I mean, maybe you also have thoughts about how your caregivers experience things through the various aspects of your journey.
Yeah, so, at the time when I was going through treatment, I wasn't like the happy person that you see today. I wasn't someone that sailed through chemo. I was just really down. I didn't understand why this was happening to me, my family. I would see my friends like out living their best lives. And, I was angry and sad and so scared. And um, I ended up going to see a counselor, of course. I think that is always such a positive thing to do. And at one time, I had two therapists, but they didn't know about each other. And so I would go see one, and then she would say, like, "Oh, Dara, you're doing so well. Let's meet in 2 weeks." And I would say, "Great, that's fine." And then I would go and see the other one the following week. So I eventually like told them and we all just laughed about it. But I mean, I'm such a fan of asking for help and seeking help when you need it. There's so many resources available, but you do have to sort of decide that, okay, I'm ready to go talk to someone. And, my dad and my stepmother, to their credit, they don't live in the same city that I live in, and they came every other week when I went through chemo and really just sort of took care of the kids, and sort of like managed the house because my husband was working and I just needed like emotional support. And my dad sort of coined the term like emotionally inefficient because I would say so many things. So I had so many comments that just weren't very emotionally efficient. And I talk about this in my book, but I would complain a lot and I just was looking at the glass half empty and wasn't counting, wasn't looking for anything to be grateful about, was just kind of focusing on all the wrong bad things. And so um, I sort of learned through him, like, you know, our thoughts have so much power. And that's definitely led to a lot of the work that I'm doing now. But after the doctor said, okay, Dara, go back to living your life, that's when I realized like I had a choice in that moment. And I could either stay in that space and let fear and anxiety follow me around like my shadow for the rest of my life, or I could do something about it. And that's when I started reading everything I could get my hands on, like really just sort of immersing myself in ways that I could try to help myself feel better mentally, emotionally, physically, all the things. And I mean, that was a game changer for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I know it seems like we don't recognize when we might need help. And it's almost a shift in our mindset to even think, like, well, maybe I don't need help, but maybe I should go see a therapist just because it's probably a good idea. And then once you're there, and they're asking you really great questions and helping you to see how you're doing because it's hard to see from the inside. Then
Absolutely.
you realize, oh yeah, I really needed this.
Yeah, and I lost my mom to cancer. And so that was sort of in the back of my mind, in my subconscious mind, if you will, the whole time. I just didn't know it. I didn't realize it. And so I think that if you have an experience, like a past experience with someone, a family member, a close friend who did not have the outcome that you had hoped they would have, that is definitely something that can impact your experience, whether or not it's relevant or not. And so I really, really didn't even see that until years after I had gone through breast cancer and was really sort of processing everything. And then I could see clearly then because I had stepped away from it. Because when you're in the middle of it, you're right, you can't see clearly. And it's absolutely okay to ask for help if you need it.
Yeah. So after sort of the active cancer treatment was completed, what did your doctors are like, oh, now you can go back to your regular life.
Yeah.
Like, how,
Yeah, like it's just that
tell us
easy.
about that because you can't really ever go back. But did you go back to things or did you like recreate new? Like, how did your
Yeah,
identity sort of shift or return or whatever?
I love that question. So I really kind of view my life as BC before cancer and AC after cancer. And it's going to be it's like that forever for the rest of my life. It's always going to be those two categories. Um, and I realized that I didn't want to go back to the way things were before because I had changed so much. Um, Going through cancer and after I decided to kind of, learn a lot and really try to figure things out, I wasn't the same version of myself. And so I realized that at the time I was a financial advisor. I had done that for over 20 years and I didn't want to think about money anymore. I didn't want to think about that all day long. And I'd always wanted to be a writer. And so I decided that I wanted to just quit my job, which, my husband was like, "You're quitting your job. Are you sure about this?" And it was a really hard decision because I did like what I did and it checked a lot of boxes on paper. But at the end of the day, like I knew I wasn't the happiest version of myself doing that. And so finally, I had the courage to listen to the little voice inside myself that I had sort of kind of toned down for so many years before I went through cancer because I knew that like I wasn't really doing what I really wanted to be doing. But again, it checked a lot of boxes on paper. And so I quit my job. I started my blog, Crazy Perfect Life. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like a mom with a laptop. I had no, I didn't have an admin. I didn't have anyone to help me. Made so many mistakes. But I started having a lot of fun, and what I was writing was resonating with people. And then I wrote my first book and started doing a lot of speaking. And I realized like I wanted to use my experience to help other people. And if that could be the something good that came out of something bad. And I never thought that I would have the life that I have today. And it's so much better than I could have ever even imagined. Like, just doing what I'm doing and getting to meet so many amazing people and be inspired by them. And I can honestly say, like, if I hadn't gone through breast cancer, I would not have had the courage to quit my job and to sort of recreate myself. And so for that, I'll always be grateful.
Yeah, and so you mentioned like during treatment you went through some, I don't know, difficult times, obviously, and your
Yeah.
emotional or your coping maybe wasn't the best,
No, that's
maybe some
exactly
bad
right.
habits.
Yeah, no, that's exactly
Um,
right. I mean, I wasn't someone that sailed through chemo. I popped a Zofran like every 6 hours for 4 months straight. I felt really nauseous. I felt exhausted, tired, um, and I had just a lot of anxiety about the side effects of all the things. Um, and so that was really hard. And it definitely took an emotional toll on me because I wasn't coping the way that like I actually knew how to cope. Um, and it was definitely a growing experience for me.
so that's interesting because sometimes I think like when people are facing cancer, it could be like one of the most major things they've ever faced in their life. So
Absolutely.
they might not have actually learned coping tools, if they haven't had a lot
Yeah.
of significant, difficult things in their life before. I mean, not nobody has a easy, perfect life, but
Yeah,
but
there's varying levels for sure.
some people have had to learn coping skills
Yeah.
prior to a cancer diagnosis. So I'm curious how, like, do you feel like you had good coping skills, but you just weren't able to like bring them out during
Yeah,
treatment, or is it like you needed different ones, or from this end side of things, how do you reflect back on how you were doing?
it's so interesting because when my mom was going through cancer and she had melanoma, when she was diagnosed, it was um, advanced throughout her whole body. And the statistics, this was over 20 years ago. Actually, it was over 25 years ago. Um, and my mom was a therapist, and she had a little button, like a round circle that someone had given her, I guess one of her therapist friends probably, and it said on there, I can cope. And I remember like my mom had that and she would like keep it on her night table. Um, and I didn't really think much of it, right? Like I was at the time, actually, I was pregnant with my first daughter. So, I mean, I was just trying to get through all of that. Um, and when I went through everything, it's like I had sort of forgotten about like the power of reminding yourself that you can cope, that you can get through this, that you can do hard things. And instead of like reminding myself of that, I was just like laser focused on, you know, am I feeling nauseous? Am I gonna, what's gonna happen? Blah, blah, blah. And I had forgotten that I had that power. And so I definitely wasn't coping to the best of my ability at all. And I don't really know why that is. I mean, I think I had a lot of unresolved, unprocessed things from my mom's diagnosis because she passed away a few weeks before I had my first daughter. And like literally, I had Zoe and my mom passed away, and there wasn't like a whole lot of processing. It was just sort of like, okay, now I'm a mom and I'm gonna try to be happy for my daughter. So it was complicated, Julie.
Yes. I
I
mean,
mean,
it sounds like kind
I
of the,
wasn't a delight.
well, it's also a situation where you're like, you don't know, again, like you don't know how much you really need
Yeah,
like good help. And
yeah, that's
then,
right.
and you didn't have time to
Yeah,
even like do grieving, and
yeah,
then
exactly.
not even realizing how that's playing in.
Yeah.
And so,
But I don't,
yeah,
I mean, I try to show myself a lot of grace
yeah,
because, like I did the best I could at the time. And,
yep.
I feel like I've grown so much from that experience. And, hopefully I'm able to help other people when they're going through things now. And I do really think that that is the something good that can come out of something bad. But I definitely had to like admit to myself, like, this isn't sustainable. I don't want to feel this way. And I've got to do something about it. And I think it's an intentional, active decision that we get to make for ourselves if we want to. And I think I just got on my own nerves to the point where I was like, I got to figure this out.
Yes, I mean, like it's totally like people, of course, in treatment and feeling miserable, like, of course, you're going to
Yeah.
be grumpy and
Yeah.
complaining. Like,
Yeah.
that's expected. Yeah.
And it's
Um,
not easy. I mean, for so many people that don't really, they've never personally seen someone go through treatment. I mean, maybe they've like watched a TV show and they've seen someone like lose their hair and, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the day in, day out, treatment that someone is going through, regardless of what that is hard. And I think maybe sometimes we don't necessarily understand like how hard that can be for someone. Um, and I think that's why like it's so magical and powerful when cancer survivors can cheer each other on and support each other because no one knows better than someone that's been through it.
totally. So okay, we've talked some about bad habits
Yeah.
or like coping that maybe wasn't as helpful, but what kinds of tools and habits helped you cope and navigate the post-cancer space?
So, since going through all of that and recognizing that, okay, I need to do something about it, I shared that I realized that I had that choice. Like, okay, I could live the rest of my life like this, or I could do something about it. Since then, I've really sort of dedicated a lot of time to building a toolbox, if you will, of tools that I can lean on when life gets challenging. And let's face it, like we're all humans on planet Earth, like life is challenging at times for all of us. So some of my favorite tools are a daily gratitude practice. I mean, I think hands down that is the best tool that really helped me the most. And it's such a simple way to kind of shift your mindset from thinking about what isn't working or what you don't like to focusing on finding something that you're grateful for. And even though you might be facing a challenge or even going through cancer, there are still positive things in your life. You might not want to get treatment, but you're thank goodness you have doctors or that you have people that are qualified to help you or that there's been research done in that space. You know, there's just there's always something to find that can help us sort of like shift our mindset and find the good. So having a daily gratitude practice, hands down, super powerful. Because when we start to recognize the good in our lives, we're able to sort of train our minds to see it more often. And gratitude brings in joy. And so the more grateful we are, the more joyful we become. And so that was really a big, big thing for me. Daily meditation, I think that is so important. And, research is on my side on both of those things. I mean, we can look at even huge cancer centers in the country, and they recognize the benefits of even through with cancer patients, like looking for gratitude and daily meditation, writing in a journal, processing things, I think is really, really important. Especially like if you're someone that can't verbalize, but you're feeling anxious and you don't know why you're feeling anxious. I think just sort of grabbing a pen, and writing can really help. Exercise for me is a daily non-negotiable. Um, and really preferably exercising outside at least, 4 to 5 days a week. For me, going and being outside in nature kind of shifts my mindset always. It's really grounding. Reading positive, something positive in the morning. I also think that establishing like a daily self-care practice, whatever that looks like, if it's in the morning, if it's in the evening, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I can do 15 minutes of a lot of these tools that I shared, through habit stacking, which is, maybe I'll grab a cup of hot tea and sit and write in a journal and meditate and think about, what I want to do for the day or set my intention. I can do all of that in 15 minutes. But when you are intentional about it, it can really shift your mindset, and it can have a profound impact on your happiness just really throughout the day.
Yeah. And it's not that all these things have to be done every single day.
No, no. And that's the thing. Like I always say, because I teach, I have teach people these tools. What works for me or for what works for one person doesn't necessarily resonate for everyone. And so, even if someone listening, maybe like one tool is something that they think, oh, maybe I want to try that. Just bringing that into their life can have really a positive impact. And, we don't have to be perfect. And so if I miss even just like several months of meditating, like maybe life gets in the way, or maybe I get off of my schedule or whatever, that's okay. Guess what? Tomorrow's a new day and I can kind of reset. And so I always try to remind people like we're not striving for perfection. We're just trying to figure out what we can do to help ourselves feel the way we want to feel and then do more of that.
Yeah. I even think like finding 15 minutes and setting a alarm or whatever to remind you. Um, and then you can pick any one of these things. And if you don't want to have to pick, then you can just randomly pull one out of a jar. Do what it says.
Yeah, but I always say like to people when I'm teaching these, like, try it. Just try it. If
Mhm.
you can hear my dog barking, sorry about that. This is real life. Um, but, another thing that I think is really important is not just bringing tools in that make us feel good, but also realizing like, okay, are there things in my life I want to let go of? I want to take out of my life. And so, I mean, I think that is so important. Like, are you surrounding yourself with negative people? If so, pull back. Are there things in your life that you don't necessarily have to do and you don't want to do? Don't do them anymore, or find a way to like spend less time doing things you don't want to do. Um, and so I think that can be really powerful. Looking at your life and saying like, okay, do I have any habits, daily habits that maybe aren't serving me well? Be honest. And if so, then like try to sort of pull back or cut back. Are you eating unhealthy junk food? Are you drinking alcohol? Like when we look at that, it's not always bringing new things in, but it's also taking things out.
Right. And making space for something different.
Exactly.
When it comes to something that a lot of people talk about, is the fear of recurrence. That's like constantly like surveys of cancer survivors. That's always one of the top things that is bothering people, concerning people beyond, their treatment is just that fear of what's going to happen in the future. Is it going to come back? What advice do you have for coping with like that sort of, I don't know, I guess like anxiety that's always there?
Yeah. It's definitely, I mean, hands down, one of the biggest fears that any cancer patient survivor has. Because if cancer was in your body at one time, how can we make sure that doesn't happen again? For me personally, I like to focus on what I can do to help myself. And so a lot of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis in terms of like my self-care are ways that I can help myself be the healthiest version of me. And so, like I mentioned, like eating really cleanly and healthy is like a non-negotiable. Exercise, meditation. I mean, all of that is ways that I can help myself try to be as healthy as possible. No, I mean, we can't control what happens, right? But worrying about it isn't going to help. But having a team of doctors that you fully trust, seeing your doctor as much as you feel you need to see your doctor for your comfort level, I think is really important. I'm 11 years out, thank God, and I see my doctor twice a year. And I told her, like, I will be doing this for the rest of my life. And fortunately, she's totally fine with that, because it makes me feel comfortable. And so, asking yourself, like, what do I need to help myself feel comfortable? Figure that out and then do it. But taking care of myself is just really important. And it's a non-negotiable. And so that's something that I can do to help myself be the healthiest version of myself. And recognizing that like nobody has a glass ball. No one on planet Earth knows what's going to happen to them. I mean, turn on the news tonight and you will see that sadly, a lot of things happen to people that they didn't know was going to happen today when they got up. And so my point is that no one knows what's going to happen, but when you go through cancer, it forces you to think
Mm,
about things that you didn't necessarily ever think about or that you really don't want to think about. Um, and that's when like the power of our minds really comes into play. I have this exercise that I teach people, which is the power of self-talk and paying attention to like what you say to yourself in a day. And I always tell people, especially like if someone says, "Oh, I don't have any negative thoughts," to like take a piece of paper and tomorrow or just for the next 3 hours or whatever, write down every time you have a negative thought. Just keep a little tally. And it's shocking how often people have negative thoughts when they're not paying attention to what they're saying to themselves. And so, if we can kind of realize that, then we can shift our mindset by replacing that negative thought with something positive. And so, like, if you're having a negative thought that is, oh no, what if the cancer comes back? And that is a reoccurring negative thought, then you need to figure out something that you can say to yourself when you recognize that you're having that statement to shift your mindset, such as, I did all of the treatment that was available, or I'm taking care of myself, or I'm a healthy version of myself, or, just whatever you can say to shift that mindset. And it really helps. But you have to pay attention to what you're saying.
yeah. And I think if people are very, like, they're so caught up in all of it, sometimes they do need, like, you need a therapist to help you
Absolutely.
tease those things out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like, also like, well, what are we afraid of? And reminding yourself, like, I've been through this before, and you know, I can't control, I can take care of myself. I want to feel as well as I can, today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
And but yeah, sometimes it's just really hard. But I like the idea of like a thought audit. When I talk with people about nutrition, I'm like, let's just do an audit of what you currently eat, because I don't remember what I eat. And it's the same thing with our thoughts. Like, if you have your journal and you're paying a little bit more attention to like what is running through your mind and what you might want to do differently with that. I interviewed like a gratitude expert. So
Mhm.
this idea of a gratitude practice, it's not about just like only finding happy things or having to have good things. It's like just being like grateful for what you do have. And it can be super simple, like you said, but being able to, yeah, think that way sometimes does, it requires that you write it down or be more aware of what it is that's going through your mind?
I mean, intention is probably like if I had to say one word in terms of the way I live today versus the way I used to live, it's my life is wrapped in intention. I try to be really aware of my thoughts. I try to be really intentional about how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, what feels good. That's really why I recently wanted to start working with cancer services because I was feeling like I wasn't spending enough time with people like survivors in person. And so, if the voice in your head like starts to whisper something to you, like pay attention. And, that's sort of like a hint as to what it is that you want more of in your life.
Yeah. And I think that, having the community of survivors around you, like, is really important. I think it's interesting that you talk about like being in person with other people versus like you can find that support through, social media or through various things, but there's something about like having an actual conversation with somebody versus like when you're chatting or on social media, it's not as much of an interactive relationship versus being in person or talking to somebody. So do you have more thoughts about that, like
Yeah.
building your community, like how you feel like is a good balance? Because I mean,
Yeah.
using online is helpful to find somebody if especially if you have like a rare cancer or whatever. But
I
like
mean,
at what point is
yeah,
there
I
a
mean,
balance?
I'm a huge fan of online. Like I teach my How to Thrive After You Survive class online and I mean the amount of vulnerability and sharing that goes on in that class. And I mean, honestly, like I really feel heart connections, even though we're not together in person, I think is really powerful. So I am such a huge fan of online, and I'm very active on social media. And I have a lot of friends, author friends especially, that I've never met that are some of my closest friends, like seriously. Um, but also, being in person is another great way because you can really read someone's body language on a different level. So I would say, there's so many ways to connect with people nowadays. Figure out what works for you. I mean, I remember when I went through treatment, my white blood count was so low. Like, there was no going, and this was obviously way before COVID, but like, I wasn't gonna be going in public a lot because after treatment, like I had just such a low white blood count, I had to be really careful. I would have loved to have had, Zoom capabilities back then and such. But I would just say regarding like social media, just pay attention to some of the negative particularly like negative groups that can be on social media. A lot of times you'll find people that are having negative experiences or are not very positive. They're the ones that are in a lot of those groups because the positive people are out living their best lives, right? Like they're not at home posting on social media complaining, they're out living. And so I just always tell people like be really careful to choose a group that really gives you what you're looking for and don't get sucked into all the negativity that's out there.
Yeah, like how are you feeling after you spend time with whatever
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is? Yeah.
yeah, and it can drive your fear as well. So, just pay attention. Again, there's a lot of sad stories out there, but there's a lot of really positive stories. But the people that experienced a lot of the positive stories aren't posting about it because they're out living.
Uh, yeah, and of course we want to like be supportive to other people too, but if you are in a place like where you need more support and then you go to a where you think you're going to get support and you find you're giving everyone else support,
That's
like I
so
think just
true.
there's nothing like wrong with other people needing support, but you have to be honest with yourself about whether you're getting what you need out of that or if it's
Absolutely.
taking when you really need more giving.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a season for everything, and you've got to figure out what season you're in.
Yes, that's an excellent like, yeah, thinking about, well, if you're in the middle of treatment, then maybe not
Yeah,
going to an in-person
exactly.
group, but maybe going to an outdoor hike,
That's
is
right.
something that you would be able to tolerate.
Yeah.
Or even just sitting, somewhere in a beautiful space that doesn't use so much of your physical energy.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Well, this is super awesome to hear all these things from you. I do want to sort of wrap us up with one last question as we close up. I wanted to ask, what message do you want every survivor to hear today?
I think just remember that you're not your diagnosis. You are so much more than what you're going through or what you experienced, and you can get to the other side of it. It might be hard, and it might not look exactly like you thought it was going to look, your life, but at the end of the day, we all have more control over our lives than we think we do, even when we go through something that we didn't ask for that we can't control. And so just, wrap your life in intention. Figure out what it is you want to do with your life, your time, who you want to be with, how you want to spend your days, and then give yourself permission to do whatever it is that you find makes you happy.
Awesome. That's such a great thought, that just you are more than your diagnosis. I love that. So thank you so much, Dara, for sharing your experience with us today, and for all you do for cancer
Um,
patients throughout, the year, through us and through your own personal business. It's just awesome to have you. And lucky for us, we get to have you in person.
it's such
But
a blessing for me. So thank you.
So that wraps up our topic for today. Just as a reminder, all of our interviews are available on our website, which is cancerservicesonline.org, our YouTube channel, and the audio is on our podcast, The Triad Cancer Connection. So be sure that you're on our email list and follow our social media channels to be updated on our programs and services. We hope you have an awesome day, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks for having me.